You know that sound. You stand up from the couch after an hour of sitting still, and your knees announce it to the whole room. Or you squat down to pick something up, and there's that grinding, crunching sensation under the kneecap. Not exactly painful, just there. Impossible to ignore. If you're over 40, there's a good chance this has become so routine, you barely notice it anymore. Maybe you've joked about it. Maybe you've quietly worried about it. Maybe someone once told you it means your cartilage is wearing out, and that thought has been sitting in the back of your mind ever since. Here's what I want to do in this video. I want to actually explain what's happening in there, because the real answer is more interesting than you'd expect, and considerably less alarming than most people assume. Then I want to walk you through how to tell the difference between the noise that doesn't matter and the noise that does, because there is a difference, and most people don't know what to listen for. The sound has a name. Doctors call it crepitus, from the Latin word meaning to rattle, and it is extraordinarily common. A systematic review of 103 studies covering over 36,000 people found that 41% of the general population has noisy knees. More striking, 36% of people with no pain, no history of injury, and no knee problems whatsoever also had knee crepitus. So if your knees sound like a bowl of cereal when you stand up, you are in very large company, including plenty of people whose knees are perfectly fine. That said, the sound isn't always meaningless, and knowing what yours is actually telling you is worth understanding. There are 3 distinct things that can produce noise in a knee joint, and they feel and sound different enough that once you know what to listen for, you can usually tell them apart. The first is gas. Your knee joint is enclosed in a capsule filled with synovial fluid, a thick, slippery liquid that lubricates the joint and keeps the cartilage surfaces from grinding directly against each other. Dissolved in that fluid are gases, nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide. When you move the joint in a way that rapidly increases the space inside the capsule, standing up from a deep squat, straightening a bent knee after sitting still, the pressure inside drops suddenly. And when pressure drops, dissolved gases come out of solution fast, forming a bubble. That bubble formation is what makes the pop. For most of the 20th century, scientists assumed the noise came from the bubble collapsing. Then, in 2015, researchers used real-time MRI imaging to watch joints crack as it actually happened, and what they found overturned decades of assumption. The sound occurs at the moment the bubble forms, not when it bursts. You can see it on the imaging, a bright flash of gas appearing in the joint space, right at the moment of the crack. After the pop, the gases slowly redissolve into the fluid, which is why you can't immediately crack the same joint twice. It needs time to reset. This type of noise is harmless. No tissue damage, no wear, no signal of anything wrong. The second source is tendons and ligaments. Around your knee, several tendons cross over bony ridges as the joint moves. When a tendon is tight, either from muscle tension, reduced flexibility, or the changes in tissue elasticity that come with age, it can catch slightly on one of those ridges before snapping back into place. That snap is audible, sometimes quite loudly. It tends to happen at a specific point in the movement, reproducibly, and often stops once the joint has been warmed up and moving for a few minutes. Again, no damage, no cause for concern. The third source is the one that warrants more attention. When the cartilage on the surfaces of the knee, particularly on the underside of the kneecap, becomes roughened or worn, the joint no longer moves smoothly. Instead of gliding, surfaces catch and grate. The sound this produces is different from a pop or a snap. It's a grinding, crunching sensation, sometimes felt more than heard, like sandpaper moving under the kneecap. This is what crepitus from cartilage change actually feels like, and it tends to be persistent rather than occasional, present across the full range of motion rather than at one specific point. Most people, when they worry about their noisy knees, are picturing this third type. And for most people whose knees are making noise without pain or swelling, it isn't what's happening. Here's where I want to be careful, because this is an area where people get told 2 different oversimplifications. Either cracking knees don't mean anything, stop worrying, or that noise is your cartilage grinding away, you're heading for arthritis. Neither of those is quite right, and you deserve the more accurate picture. The honest answer is this: noisy knees and arthritis are associated, but association is not the same as cause, and it's not the same as destiny. A large study published in Arthritis Care and Research tracked 3,495 people over 4 years through the Osteoarthritis Initiative, one of the biggest knee health databases in the world. They found that people who reported frequent crepitus had higher odds of developing symptomatic osteoarthritis over the follow-up period compared to people who never reported it. The more frequent the crepitus, the higher the odds. That's real, and it's worth knowing. But here's what that study also found, and what most people telling you to panic conveniently leave out. The vast majority of those cases occurred in people who already had radiographic changes in their knees, structural changes visible on X-ray, but no pain yet. In other words, crepitus in those people wasn't creating the problem. It was a symptom accompanying a process that was already underway, and it helped predict when pain would show up in people already on that trajectory. For people with no existing radiographic changes, the picture was much less alarming. Research looking at people who already have knee osteoarthritis found something counterintuitive. The presence of crepitus didn't affect their actual physical function or knee strength at all. Objective measures, how much weight they could lift, how well they moved, were the same whether their knees were noisy or not. The only differences were in self-reported outcomes. People with crepitus rated their pain and function slightly worse, and researchers suspect a significant part of that is driven by what people believe the noise means. The fear of it, the anticipation of it, the way it makes people modify their movement to avoid hearing it. The noise itself isn't doing the damage. The fear of the noise may be changing how people move in ways that do. So, if your knees have been cracking for years and there's no pain, no swelling, no instability, no stiffness that lingers, you're almost certainly dealing with benign crepitus. The sound is real. The damage it implies is probably not. A woman I know, mid-50s, active, walks several miles a day, started noticing her left knee making a grinding sound when she went upstairs. She'd had noisy knees for years, so she ignored it. Then over about 6 months, it came with a dull ache under the kneecap, and the knee started feeling stiff after she sat for more than 20 minutes. She finally brought it up with her doctor, expecting to be told it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. An MRI showed patellofemoral chondromalacia, softening and roughening of the cartilage on the underside of the kneecap. Not severe, not catastrophic, but real. And the key thing her doctor told her was, if she'd come in when the noise first changed character, before the pain settled in, they would have had more options and more time to work with. That's the thing about the warning signs. They're not subtle once you know what to look for. The noise by itself is rarely the problem. The noise in combination with other things. That's when to pay attention. Here's what to watch for. Pain accompanying the sound, even mild achiness around or behind the kneecap, is the most important signal. Swelling around the joint after activity. A feeling that the knee is unstable, that it might give way. Locking or catching, where the knee momentarily won't straighten fully, and stiffness that's present when you first get up in the morning and takes more than 30 minutes to ease off. Any one of these, alongside the crepitus, is reason to get it evaluated. All of them together is an urgent reason. If you have none of those, if it's just noise, then the evidence is reassuring. But reassuring doesn't mean do nothing. The single best thing you can do for noisy knees, whether they're symptomatic or not, is build the muscles around the joint. Your quadriceps, the muscles at the front of the thigh, are the primary shock absorbers for your knee. When they're strong, they reduce the load on the cartilage with every step. Research consistently shows that people with stronger quads have less knee pain, slower cartilage degradation, and better long-term outcomes even in the presence of existing osteoarthritis. This is not complicated exercise. It's squats, step-ups, straight leg raises, leg press. You don't need a gym. You need consistency. Body weight also matters more than most people want to hear. Every extra pound of body weight adds roughly 4 pounds of load across the knee joint when you're walking, and up to 10 times that when you're going downstairs or squatting. That math compounds over thousands of steps a day, year after year. For people already showing early cartilage changes, this is probably the highest impact modifiable variable there is. And movement itself is protective, not destructive. A sedentary knee is not a safe knee. Cartilage gets its nutrition from the compression and release of movement. It has no direct blood supply. The fluid that feeds it gets squeezed in and out through activity. Resting a knee that isn't injured doesn't protect it. It just removes the mechanical stimulus the cartilage depends on to stay healthy. That sound your knees make, the crack, the pop, the grinding crunch when you stand up, is almost certainly not your cartilage being destroyed. It's a gas bubble forming, a tendon snapping back into place, the normal acoustics of a large, complex joint that's been carrying you around for decades. For most people most of the time, it means nothing is wrong. What it is, though, is a useful check-in, not a reason to panic, a reason to notice. Is there pain with it? Swelling? Stiffness that lingers? If the noise is the only thing, you're fine. If the noise has company, that company is worth paying attention to. Your knees are not fragile. They are load-bearing, shock-absorbing, extraordinarily well-engineered structures that respond to how you treat them. Build the muscles around them. Keep your body weight in a reasonable range. Keep moving, not despite the noise, but partly because of what keeping active does for the joint tissue underneath it. The worst thing most people do after their knees start making noise is move less, out of fear they're causing damage. The research says that's backwards. Movement is medicine for joints. The noise is not a stop sign. For most of you, it's just the sound of a body doing what bodies do. If this helped, subscribe. We cover the biology behind things that affect your daily life every week, based on what the research actually says. And if you know someone who's been quietly worried about their creaky knees, share this with them. It might be the most reassuring 7 minutes they've spent this week.